Austria's story begins long before it ever became a nation known for its grand palaces, music, and mountains. Its earliest secrets lie buried beneath layers of ancient settlement, where tribes like the Celts shaped the land long before Rome's legions arrived. These early Celtic communities developed distinct cultures, leaving behind mysterious hill forts, metalwork, and rituals that still raise questions among archaeologists. When the Romans finally expanded into this region, they transformed it into a critical frontier of the empire. This mixture of peoples created a patchwork of languages and customs, laying the foundation for Austria's diverse identity. By the early Middle Ages, the region began to take on a more recognizable form under the rule of the Frankish Empire. Charlemagne's expansion turned the area into a defensive border zone called the Ostmark, meaning Eastern March, designed to protect the empire from outside threats. This is where the name Sterek, or Austria, is believed to have originated. Over time, what began as a strategic frontier slowly transformed into a land of emerging political influence. The rise of the Habsburg dynasty in the 10th century marked a turning point. They strengthened Austria's borders, encouraged trade, and built fortresses that still stand as silent witnesses to early medieval power struggles. Yet the real secret to Austria's long-term influence began in the 13th century, with the arrival of a family whose name would become synonymous with European history. The Habsburgs, what began as a regional noble house, would eventually become one of the most powerful dynasties on the continent. The Habsburgs mastered a simple but strategic principle: expand not just through war, but through marriage. Their alliances connected Austria to Spain, Hungary, the Netherlands, Italy, and large parts of the Holy Roman Empire. Through these unions, the Habsburgs shaped the political destiny of Europe for centuries. Under Habsburg rule, Austria grew into a vast, multi-ethnic empire. This was not a simple nation-state, but a collection of peoples with different languages, religions, and traditions. Germans, Hungarians, Czechs, Slovaks, Poles, Ukrainians, Slovenes, Croatians, Romanians, Italians, and many others lived under the same crown. The empire's diversity was a strength in some eras, providing cultural richness and economic power. Yet it was also a source of tension. Balancing so many identities required constant negotiation, reforms, and compromises. This delicate balance is part of the hidden secret behind Austria's historical endurance. Throughout the Renaissance and Baroque periods, Austria became a major cultural center. Vienna blossomed into a city where art, architecture, and music flourished. The Habsburgs commissioned grand palaces like Schönbrunn and the Hofburg, symbols of their immense wealth and influence. But beyond the gold and marble, these structures hide the deeper story of a dynasty obsessed with projecting stability and power, even when internal threats loomed. The 30 Years' War, religious conflicts, and ongoing battles with the Ottoman Empire constantly challenged the empire's survival. Yet each time Austria managed to recover, reshape itself, and push forward. One of the most dramatic chapters in Austrian history unfolded during the 18th and 19th centuries. Empress Maria Theresa, one of the most influential rulers in Europe, introduced sweeping reforms in education, law, medicine, and government. Her efforts modernized the empire and strengthened its infrastructure. Her son, Joseph II, pushed even further, promoting religious tolerance and attempting to reduce the power of the nobility. Many of these reforms were resisted, yet they planted seeds of modernization that would eventually change the empire forever. Meanwhile, Vienna became a center for intellectual debate, scientific progress, and musical genius. Mozart, Beethoven, and later Strauss turned the city into the musical heart of Europe. Beneath the melodies, however, political pressures were rising. Nationalism spread across Europe, and the diverse subjects of the empire began demanding more autonomy. The 19th century saw Austria reshape itself into the Austro-Hungarian Empire, a dual monarchy created to satisfy Hungarian demands for This compromise allowed the empire to survive, but it also exposed its limits. Tensions among different ethnic groups increased, and the political system struggled to keep up with growing calls for independence. The empire's size, once its greatest strength, had become a burden in an age of rising national identities. As Europe moved toward the 20th century, Austria found itself at the center of a storm brewing across the continent. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in 1914 set off a chain reaction that ignited World War I. What many do not realize is that Austria-Hungary was already fragile before the war began. Its internal divisions, slow bureaucracy, and outdated military strategy made survival difficult. When the war ended, the once mighty empire collapsed completely. Austria was reduced to a small republic, losing vast territories and influence. The sudden transformation from imperial power to small nation left Austria struggling with identity and stability. Many Austrians felt disconnected from their past, unsure of their future, and exposed to political extremism. In the years that followed, economic challenges and political divisions weakened the young republic. Austria's dark chapter unfolded during the 1930s and 1940s, when it fell under Nazi control through the Anschluss of 1938. Although this period remains deeply painful, it is an essential part of Austria's historical reality. The war brought destruction, suffering, and moral wounds that would take generations to confront. After World War II, Austria was divided into zones controlled by the Allied powers and remained occupied until When the Austrian State Treaty was signed, the country regained its independence under the condition of perpetual neutrality, defining feature of its modern identity. Post-war Austria rebuilt itself from devastation into a stable, prosperous nation. By embracing neutrality, it positioned itself as a bridge between East and West during the Cold War. Vienna became home to major international organizations, diplomacy, and peace negotiations. The city once again thrived culturally, becoming a symbol of harmony and resilience rather than imperial dominance. This transformation is one of Austria's greatest historical secrets. The ability to reinvent itself while preserving its heritage. The nation shifted from empire to occupied territory to peaceful mediator, showing how adaptability is woven into its identity. Today, Austria is known for its high quality of life, its majestic landscapes, and its cultural legacy. But beneath the surface lies the remarkable story of a land that has worn many identities: Roman province, medieval frontier, imperial powerhouse, collapsed empire, and modern republic. Its history is marked not only by grand achievements, but also by struggles, reinvention, and quiet resilience. The secret of Austria's survival throughout the centuries is its ability to evolve, absorb influences, and endure challenges while maintaining a distinct cultural core. The country's journey from ancient tribes to modern diplomacy reveals a deep, complex story shaped by both triumph and tragedy, and through every era. Austria has remained a place where history leaves visible traces in its architecture, its traditions, and its people.